What's up guys, this is Shana and today we're going to check out Aiora in Serenia City. Also some updates around the area. Let's go! We are back here again after a year or two, and there has been some requests on an update for this location. Personally, I'm also very surprised with the few updates that I've just observed when I drive around. A lot of things happen despite the lockdown, so that's very good. But now let's get our coordinates right first. So this is the entire master plan of Serenia City. It's huge. Just to clarify, this will be the elite highway, and this will be the highway that connects to Puchong, Sri Kembangan and Cyberjaya, and this will be heading over to Kota Warisan area. Previously when we come here, it was absolutely empty. There was only a structure for the sales gallery, but now the parks and the sculpture has been completed. A few of these phases has also been completed, and some even handed over. Their latest launch, which is Aiora, is located right here. Then one of the several highlights you should know, Xiamen University is right at the corner, and that's the ERL that connects to KL Central and KLIA. And something unique about this township is also they have that industrial side of things for job opportunities as well. So this is Aiora, their latest development, and they just recently launched half of it and it was sold out, right? So in total there's 282 units all together. And something about this brand is they have somewhat perfected that township development landed product design, because they have repeated this so many times and they refine a little bit each time they do it, which is amazing. Something the first highlight is north-south facing, so all houses are north-south facing. Then you have that perimeter fencing for safety, individual title, freehold, and when you come in from the roundabout there will be greeneries and parks adjacent to it to fill up the non-straight spaces. And that's also the treatments for spaces that are a little bit more awkward, right? Because they want everything to be north-south facing, also because of the road patterns. In order to prevent unit facing junctions, this spinal design is always the most efficient way. Then for intermediate units, it's 20 by 70 and the build-up is 1008. From the ground floor, this is the car porch going into the unit. You have your living and dining, then your kitchen and a ground floor bedroom. You have a guest bathroom as well, shared between the user of this room and the guest. Then you have your yard space at the back. Going upstairs, you have a family hall here, bedroom 2, 3 and the principal bedroom. So the main difference between this phase and the earlier phase at Serenia City would be the ensuite bathroom. So it's a little bit more exclusive. So these are selling at 720,000 currently, and it results in a sold out. It's pretty popular among the locals, and it's a considerable alternative for residents who are staying around Puchong, Sri Kembangan and Cyberjaya area, just because of the inner road that connects them to this address. Not only that, there are a lot of other players within this proximity, and that's always a good thing and a bad thing. Bad thing for developers would then be competition also, but it's always good for consumers as we have different brands keeping each other on their toes to constantly have that competition to innovate and come up with better products for consumers. So like us, yes, as usual, they are very proud of what they have done and refined in their design. They even listed out all of them, like the auto gate point, outdoor filter connection ready, internet ready, alarm system, power point, roof system, USB charging for bedroom, booster pump, 3-phase and water heater power points for all bathrooms. It's just so amazing, just like their other townships. But the main thing I want to highlight today is actually the update of the entire surrounding for this location, because if you're not familiar with this location, you still think that it's that very ulu area, which is not true. A lot of things that happen within the township and at the proximity of it, so let's go check it out. So we are now at the roundabout next to the park, and you can see the sculpture there. So they actually put in a lot of effort in the design, where you can see the propellers that's actually harvesting the wind energy, and that will be the direction for this entire development, which is self-sustaining, which is more aware of the surrounding. We need to be a little bit more conscious on the environment. And so even the sculpture here, you can see this rectangular frame is made out of recycled materials, and something in the future as well, they are moving towards all these self-sustaining initiatives throughout the entire township. And something to point out, I think this park is amazing looking. So this park is around 25 acres. It has a lot of greenery surrounding, a lot of sculptures. Like even that sculpture at the end, the roof structure actually collects rainwater. In a matter of time, this is going to be that hotspot for residents around the area to just get your evening walks or their weekend walks with your kids, to just have that connection with nature. And this is pretty similar with what they have in all of their townships lah. But as we mentioned before, they have done this so many times, and sometimes you come to think of it, why? Why are their parks so well received? So this is the walkway where it's pebble watch, then it's easier for maintenance, it's wide enough where two persons can jog in opposite direction and it can still accommodate a bicycle. Then you have this hedge, and this is their concept of using landscape as part of their security purpose. This looks way better in comparison to using barricades as the divider from the lake and the pathways. And this is called a pedestrian lighting. Unlike street lighting, it's a little bit too far. And in order to increase the sense of security for the residents, they designed this to be way shorter, hence making it brighter, making you feel safer. Also, the interplay between the softscape and the hardscape, as you can see, you still have a curb to separate out the turfings with the pathways. Then you have sitting areas for you to just hang out and enjoy the weather. And based on the discussion I have with a lot of buyers, the awareness of importance of a public space like this is improving. A lot of people realize the importance of it way more after the lockdown. So this is very, very cool since the last time we came here. We are now at Amani, one of their earlier phases that just got handed over to the customers. So you can see some are actually doing their renovation, some are slowly moving in already. So we are here to observe several things. Number one, you can see that it's very uniform. Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3, Phase 4, regardless which phase, right, all look somewhat similar. In terms of the site plan design, the spinal roads, the usage of green areas to fill up spaces that are not linear, orientation of the houses, the facade design of the houses, as well as the individual guardhouse that every plot has. Again, this is an individual titled freehold project, therefore these are done after VP. It means that it's designed with the end in mind of having that security booth, but it needs to be maintained by the RA after it's established by the residents. The other thing to look out for would be the common areas outside the perimeter of the housing, which is all these walkways, bicycle lanes, pedestrian lighting, landscapes that actually encourage safety and security. Not only you have green areas within the development, you also have spaces in between different developments, and that's just awesome. So at the far end, that would be the splash of commercial lots just for convenience purposes for now. And personally, I really enjoy the approach to Masterplan design. You have different parks already. You have that central park, there's the sculpture, you have a park that's actually preserving the 100 years old trees. Then you have another park here in between different phases of residents. Then in each phases of residents that actually fenced up, right? Within the housing development, you also have greens, you also have your own parks. And they seem to have found that magic formula that a lot of people like. They like the gated and they like the guarded without a tying of strata title. So just in case you're wondering like what you're gonna get if you buy the latest phase, right? It's going to be somewhat similar, just that there's going to be a lot of upgrade in terms of specs and sizes every time they do new things. Now we are actually next to Aiora site itself. Those are the higher lands, and that seems to be the USP of Aiora itself. Another USP will be the proximity to this park, which is directly in front of the development. So this is the park in progress, right? So they are actually building the pathways, they're actually planting the trees, the shrubs, engineering the water treatments. But what I really appreciate is that they preserve these several trees that are more than 100 years old. It might sound very simple, but it's actually very challenging to do because it's just easier to clear the entire plot of land, leave nothing and then just replant everything, right? From a construction point of view, I would prefer that, but to build a new township surrounding existing natural elements is very difficult because even if I protect them, if I preserve them, they might not necessarily survive, but in this case, they are doing really well. Another thing to highlight would be their public roads like this. So you can see their pavers. Whenever you come across a roundabout, then you have a sculpture on the roundabout. Then these are thicker when the roads are bigger for safety purposes. So like when I walk here, I don't have to worry about people robbing me. And there's a dedicated passageway for me to cross the road. And these are the main difference if you compare a township developer versus a pocket land developer, right? So let's say if I only have this housing estate to build, there's nothing much to play around for this kind of thing because these are the one that's very costly. And if you notice, only 4 to 5 phases are launched and they still have a lot more to go, but the roads are completed, public areas like this are completed, street lamps, landscape, walkways, roads, earthwork, all completed first before they even start launching their projects. And that shows two things. One would be the commitment to the customers. The other thing is how deep their pockets can be lah. But one common issue for new townships like this is always the lack of commercial area. And within this address, as we mentioned just now, there are a lot of other players within the proximity. And in this round, let's go check them out. Right opposite the Elite Highway, we are now right in front of Xiamen University, where it's humongous in terms of structure. And before the MCO, this is quite heavily populated with students, and if you look in the surrounding, there's a lot of developments that is using this as that catalyst for their development, as this really draws a lot of population. And looking at the surrounding, the infrastructures are also very well built in terms of road, landscape, bus stop, all are sorted out. And it's always a good thing when you have different players all focusing on one address, as all of them are just trying to compete against each other in terms of product, pricing, innovation and etc. That will really push the awareness for this address as well as the quality of products that buyers will get. So next stop, let's head on to the commercial center of Kota Warisan. 5 to 10 minutes drive away from Serenia city. By this local road, you are able to reach this location called Kota Warisan. And here you have the McDonald's, you have the KFC, you have Keep Mall and some apartments. And this is one of the earliest commercial area around the address. And compared to before, really feel the intensity of the traffic, the population. And if you really want to go for the bigger malls, usually residents around this area, they go to KLIA or the Mitsui outlet. Unfortunately, those are heavily affected by the lockdown. But things are looking pretty positive nowadays. Thankfully, things are starting to pick up and things are getting a little bit more positive. So within the commercial area here, you have your barbers, your mama, your F&B outlets, your fashion, your tuition center. And I think that's all for this episode. It's now time for Sean take 3 on 3. So the 3 things I like, number 1 would be the developer itself and the track record for it, the DNA of their design, as they have done this so many times already. And if you look into the entire development of highways across Malaysia right now, from north to south, around the Klang Valley area, pretty much is dominated by them. And that leads to point number 2 in terms of product development. Generally, the DNA of their products are all the same, which are generally landed properties for their bigger township developments. And across every project, the team will try to differentiate again and again in terms of specifications of the house, in terms of product differentiation compared to the previous phase, in comparison from this township to another. And personally, when I look into Serenia City, I felt a little bit more depth in terms of their design. In this development, the structure had meaning of self-sustaining, of the awareness towards nature. The landscape designs around the public areas are way more elaborated compared to other townships. So not only they are doing a business, they are trying to build townships, they are also trying very hard to make a statement. And they don't innovate just for the sake of innovating, they still preserve the things that people like. For example, the orientation of the houses, the perimeter fencing, the arrangement of guardhouse for individual title projects. Then they improve on the facilities for the public areas to integrate them as the security feature instead of just for visual appearances. And something we also highlight is somewhat point number 1 or 2 lah. The ability to build all these public areas, all these infrastructures first before the houses are even launched. That proves commitment and their background. The third point, this development has just passed that tipping point of population migrating into the township as they have just handed over their first phase. And if you look into the previous launches, generally all sold out, including the latest phase as well. And every time there's a new development, the initial pricing for their products will be a little bit more conservative in order to attract people into the development. That gives a little bit more space in terms of capital appreciation. But that's also part of the 3 things that I don't like in a new development, where if you're part of the owners of the brand new phase, you got this brand new location, brand new township at the earliest stage, and compared to the latest phase or the future phases, it's almost guaranteed there will be capital appreciation, because as the township gets matured, more people know about this place and more people are willing to move in, then they will have this dynamic. However, you will need to live through the entire development process of this township itself, which means you need to go through every single construction for every single phase. You will have trucks driving around, you will have earth clearance where it will dirty the road sometimes, you have the construction noise, you will need to live through the inconvenience of not having commercial activities around the area yet. Then moving to point number 2, I don't like that first impression, because, well, that depends how you access to this site. If you come from Elite Highway, then you wouldn't feel that much. You will feel that the development direction is actually heading over this side, as you have several other competitors that are moving along this direction. If you're coming from Cyberjaya side, if you're coming from Puchong side, actually it's not that far. You need to drive through this local road and you still have that kampong vibe around the area until you are close by the development. For reference purposes, I'll just put the link of the earlier video of this development. Compared to the previous visit, they constructed the entrance statement, they constructed the flyover, the parks are ready, sculptures are ready, roads are generally all ready. The first phase of developments are handed over. People are starting to move in already. So by having that understanding, that comparison of before and after, right? If you look into the current context of things, you will still feel that it's not as developed, but compared to before a year ago, they have done a lot. So yes, that first impression of the location is like, but I'm pretty certain that it will change after you drive across the entrance statement and the sculptures and the roads. The last concern I have would be in terms of competition. If you look around the site, generally there's around like 6 to 7 other different development companies that are building houses around this area. That can be good and bad, right? So good is when all together are just trying to bring up the address. Bad will be the competition among them, but again, it's still good for consumers. So as consumers, we really need to be smart in terms of comparison between developments. If you purely zoom to house, right? Terrace houses, generally, there's nothing much really to compare. But when you have development to development, plus playground, plus public area, plus park, plus entrance statement, plus all these are the additional value when you buy a particular house. Yeah, this is also very close to KLIA. And that's one of the things that is really affecting the location right now, because people here, when they want to go to a mall, they usually shop at KLIA. That's why KLIA, I was wondering, why do they have a grocer there? People actually from this area go there and shop for groceries. Then they shop for branded stuff at Mitsui outlet. So conveniently, this is also a location for a lot of staffs that is working within the aviation line. Unfortunately, with the pandemic and the lockdown, it has really affected the economics around this area. So I am very, very thrilled that the economy is slowly climbing back. I hope that when borders are open, things will drastically change here. And I think that's all for this project. Shout out to the team again for having me in this very private tour. Despite them being so busy with their launches, all trying to rush for that final phase of HOC. And if you really like this episode, like it, share it, and even subscribe for more information like this. Until next time, this is Sean Tan. Ciao!